Thunder cracked across the Busan skyline, drowning out the gasps that rippled through the cathedral-sized ballroom of the Grand Aurora Hotel. Beneath a chandelier worth more than most houses, Kang Jae-hyun sat trapped in a wheelchair. The most feared mafia boss in South Korea, reduced to public humiliation in front of cameras from every major network in Asia. His fiancée had just called him a cripple before walking out mid-ceremony, and the entire Korean underworld watched his empire crack in real time. Rival syndicates smelled blood. Allied families prepared for war. Then one woman nobody noticed stepped forward through the chaos. Amara Vaughn, an event coordinator who should have run like everyone else. Instead, she looked the broken king in the eye and agreed to marry him on the spot, knowing full well it might be the last decision she ever made. If you want to see how far love can go when power meets desperation, follow this story to the very end. Hit that like button and drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this tale travels across the world. But the cameras kept flashing even after Seo Mirin disappeared through the gilded doors, her white gown trailing behind her like a surrender flag nobody dared to touch. The wedding guests sat frozen in their seats. Politicians, corporate executives, crime bosses dressed in designer suits, all of them staring at the man in the wheelchair like vultures waiting for confirmation of death. Jae-hyun's jaw tightened so hard Amar could see the muscle jump beneath his skin. His hands gripped the armrests of that sleek black wheelchair until his knuckles went bone white, and for just a second she saw something flicker across his face that made her chest tighten. Not anger, shame. Raw, bleeding shame that no amount of power or money or fear could hide. She stood 15 feet away near the sound equipment table, her tablet clutched against her ribs, watching the most powerful criminal in Korea sit beneath those crystal lights, like a king stripped naked in front of his entire kingdom. The whispers started immediately, low, vicious, hungry. Did you see her face? He can't even walk anymore. The Seo family will pull their alliance by morning. This is the end of the Kang syndicate. Amara's boss grabbed her elbow hard enough to bruise. We're leaving, now. She didn't move. Are you insane? Her boss hissed. When a mafia wedding collapses, people die. We're event coordinators, not bodyguards. Let's go before this turns into a bloodbath. But Amara kept staring at Jae-hyun. He hadn't moved, hadn't screamed or thrown anything, or ordered his men to drag Mirin back. He just sat there in that wheelchair, surrounded by 200 people who used to fear him, and she could see the exact moment he stopped being a king and became just a man drowning in front of everyone. Her boss yanked her arm again. Amara, go, she said quietly. What? I said go. I'll handle the breakdown crew. Her boss stared at her like she'd lost her mind, then cursed under his breath and bolted for the exit, along with half the ballroom. Within 90 seconds, the massive space emptied out like a sinking ship, guests fleeing in designer shoes and expensive panic, while security tried to control the media frenzy exploding near the entrance. Amara stayed. She had no logical reason to stay. She barely knew Kang Jae-hyun beyond the file her company kept on every high-profile client, billionaire industrialist on paper, ruthless crime lord in reality, paralyzed 18 months ago during an assassination attempt that left 3 of his men dead and his spine shattered. The wedding to Seo Mirin was supposed to solidify his power, merge 2 massive criminal families, prove to the underworld that Jae-hyun was still dangerous even from a wheelchair. Instead, it proved he was human, and humans bled. She watched him finally move, just his hand reaching up slowly to loosen the black tie around his throat like he couldn't breathe anymore. His head bodyguard, a mountain of a man named Do-hyun, leaned down and said something urgent near his ear. Jae-hyun's response was barely audible across the ballroom. Get out! Do-hyun froze. Boss, everyone out. Now! The remaining bodyguards exchanged glances but obeyed immediately, herding the last of the press toward the exits with barely controlled violence. Within 3 minutes, the ballroom stood empty except for the wreckage of a wedding that never happened. Untouched champagne, a 5-tier cake nobody cut, chairs knocked over in the stampede, and 2 people. Jae-hyun in his wheelchair beneath 1,000 watts of chandelier light. Amara standing near the sound booth, with her tablet still pressed against her ribs. The silence felt heavy enough to crush bones. She should leave. Every survival instinct she possessed screamed at her to walk away before this man's enemies showed up to finish what the assassination attempt started. But instead, she found herself moving forward, her heels clicking against the marble floor in steady, deliberate steps that echoed through the massive space. Jaehyun's head turned slightly. His eyes found her, and she nearly stopped walking. She'd seen those eyes before, dark, cold, calculating. The kind of eyes that evaluated threats and eliminated them without hesitation. But right now they looked different, hollow, exhausted, like a man who'd been holding up the weight of an empire for so long he forgot what it felt like to just let go. "You should run," he said quietly. His voice surprised her, deep and rough, but not cruel. Just tired. Amara stopped about 6 feet away, close enough to see the fine details of his face beneath the carefully styled black hair, sharp features, a scar along his left cheekbone that his makeup artist hadn't quite covered, tattoos creeping up from his collar that vanished beneath the expensive black suit. "I'm not good at running," she said. His jaw tightened. "The woman who just humiliated me is the daughter of the second most powerful crime family in Korea. By tomorrow morning, every enemy I have will move against me. Anyone standing next to me becomes a target." "I know." "Then why are you still here?" "Good question." Amara looked around the destroyed ballroom, at the flowers that cost more than her annual salary, at the untouched dinner tables set for 200 guests, at the altar where a marriage was supposed to happen. Her company had spent 3 months planning this wedding. She'd personally handled every detail, coordinated every vendor, managed every impossible request from both families, and it all fell apart in 90 seconds. "Someone needs to handle the breakdown," she said simply. Jaehyun stared at her like she'd spoken a foreign language. "The breakdown. The vendors, the deposits, the contracts. Someone needs to manage the aftermath." She gestured at the ballroom. "Unless you want the media camping outside the hotel for the next week fighting over cake samples and centerpieces." Something flickered across his face that might have been disbelief. "You stayed behind to handle logistics." "It's my job." "Your job was to coordinate a wedding. There is no wedding." "Then I guess my job is to coordinate the cleanup." Amara met his eyes directly. "Unless you'd prefer I leave." He didn't answer immediately, just kept staring at her with those dark, unreadable eyes, while something shifted in the air between them, something she couldn't quite name but felt all the way down to her bones. Finally, he spoke. "What's your name?" "Amara Vaughn." "Vaughn." He tested the name like he was committing it to memory. "American?" "African American, second generation." His gaze traveled over her face, her natural hair pulled back in a professional bun, the dark blue dress she'd chosen specifically because it wouldn't draw attention. She'd spent her entire career in Korea learning how to be invisible, how to coordinate million-dollar events without anyone actually noticing she existed. Being noticed by Kang Jae-hyun felt dangerous. "You're not afraid of me," he said quietly. "I didn't say that." "But you stayed. Fear and cowardice aren't the same thing." She shifted her tablet slightly. "Do you want me to start the breakdown process or not?" Before he could answer, the ballroom doors burst open. 3 men in dark suits entered fast, their hands inside their jackets in a way that made Amara's stomach drop. She recognized the lead man immediately, Kim Young-ho, underboss of the Jeju crew, one of Jae-hyun's supposed allies. The fact that he was here now, without being summoned, without permission, meant everything. Jae-hyun's entire demeanor changed instantly. The exhaustion vanished. The vulnerability disappeared. His spine straightened in that wheelchair, and his eyes went cold and sharp, transforming him back into the man whose name made grown killers nervous. "Young-ho," Jae-hyun said softly. "I don't recall inviting you into this room." Young-ho stopped about 20 feet away, his expression carefully neutral but his eyes calculating. "Boss, I heard about the situation. I came to offer assistance." "Assistance." "The Seo family will move fast. Their alliance was the foundation of our Western expansion." Young-ho's gaze flicked briefly to Amara, then back to Jae-hyun. "Without that marriage, the smaller crews will start questioning your authority. We need to show strength immediately." "Is that your professional opinion?" Jae-hyun asked, his voice dropping even lower. "It's reality, boss. The underworld runs on perception. Right now, you look Young-ho caught himself, but the damage was already done. Weak, Jae-hyun finished for him. I look weak. The temperature in the ballroom dropped 10 degrees. I didn't mean... Oh, yes, you did. Jae-hyun leaned forward slightly in his wheelchair, and despite not being able to stand, despite the paralysis, despite everything, he suddenly radiated pure violence. Do you know what happens to men who mistake temporary vulnerability for permanent weakness? Young-ho's hand moved toward his jacket. Amara didn't think. She just stepped sideways, putting herself directly between Jae-hyun and the underboss, her tablet clutched against her chest like a shield. Everyone froze. Gentlemen, she said clearly, her heart slamming against her ribs. This is still a privately contracted event space. Hotel security is stationed outside those doors, and they have strict instructions to report any disturbances to the police. Whatever business you need to discuss should probably happen somewhere more appropriate. Young-ho stared at her like she'd materialized out of thin air. Who the hell are you? The event coordinator trying to minimize legal liability. She kept her voice steady despite the terror crawling up her spine. If you'd like to schedule a meeting with Mr. Kong through proper channels, I can provide you with contact information for his office. For 3 seconds, nobody moved. Then Jae-hyun laughed. It wasn't a warm sound. It was dark and sharp and genuinely amused, and it cut through the tension like a blade. You heard her, Young-ho, Jae-hyun said, still smiling that dangerous smile. Schedule a meeting through proper channels. Now get out before hotel security decides to involve the authorities. Young-ho's jaw tightened. He looked at Amar again, then at Jae-hyun, clearly trying to calculate the political implications of what just happened. Finally, he nodded once. Of course, boss. My apologies for the intrusion. He backed toward the exit, his men following, but his eyes stayed locked on Jae-hyun until the last possible second. The message was clear. This conversation wasn't over. It was just postponed. The doors closed. Amara's legs nearly gave out. She gripped her tablet hard enough to crack the screen, her breath coming in short, shallow gasps as adrenaline crashed through her system. That, Jae-hyun said quietly behind her, was either incredibly brave or phenomenally stupid. She turned around slowly, probably both. He was staring at her with an expression she couldn't read, something between shock and intrigue and calculation. Do you have any idea what you just did? Stopped a murder in a 5-star hotel? You stepped between a mafia boss and his underboss during a power challenge. His eyes narrowed. Why? Amara took a shaky breath. Because I spent 3 months planning this wedding, and I'll be damned if someone gets shot in the middle of my event space. That dark smile returned. Your event space? While I'm still legally contracted, yes. He studied her for a long moment, and she could practically see his mind working behind those cold eyes, calculating angles and strategies and possibilities. Finally, he spoke. Marry me. Amara blinked. Excuse me? Tonight. Right now. He gestured at the abandoned altar. Marry me before the sun comes up. She stared at him like he'd lost his mind. You cannot be serious. I've never been more serious in my life. He rolled his wheelchair closer, and she instinctively took a step back, her pulse jumping. You saw what just happened. Young-ho wasn't here to offer assistance. He was here to test my response time, to see how quickly I'd react without Miran's family backing me. By dawn, every crew leader in my organization will do the same thing. So call them, threaten them. Do whatever mafia bosses do to maintain control. Fear only works when people believe you're still capable of violence. His voice went hard. Right now, they see a cripple in a wheelchair who got publicly humiliated by his own fiancée. Threats mean nothing without the perception of power. Then find another way up. There is no other way, he cut her off sharply. I need a wife. Tonight. Someone who can stand beside me at tomorrow's emergency syndicate meeting and prove I'm still in control. Someone who isn't intimidated by the underworld. Someone who just stepped between me and a loaded gun without flinching. Amara's mind spun. You don't even know me. I know you stayed when everyone else ran. I know you're intelligent enough to diffuse a hostile situation with contract law. I know you're brave or crazy, or both. His eyes locked onto hers. That's more than most marriages in my world start with. This is insane. Yes. I could die. Probably. Then why would I possibly agree? Jaehyun leaned back in his wheelchair, and for just a moment, the mask cracked again. Because you're still standing here. Because you didn't run when you had the chance. Because something in you saw a man drowning and decided to throw a rope instead of walking away. He paused. And because I'm offering you $10 million and protection for life. The number hit her like a physical blow. 10 million. Cash. Transferred to an offshore account of your choosing the moment the ceremony ends. Plus a penthouse in Seoul, a security detail, and my personal guarantee that nobody in the Korean underworld will ever touch you. His voice dropped. 1 year. Public appearances only. After that, you can disappear with enough money to build whatever life you want, anywhere in the world. Amara's thoughts crashed into each other. $10 million. Freedom. Security. Everything she'd been working toward since moving to Korea 5 years ago, struggling to build a career in a country that judged her before she even opened her mouth. But the cost... If I say yes, she said slowly, your enemies become my enemies. Yes, your life becomes my life. For 1 year. And if you die during that year, his smile turned cold. Then you inherit everything. My empire, my assets, my revenge. She should say no. Every logical brain cell she possessed screamed at her to walk away, to run, to get as far from this man and his world as humanly possible. Instead, she heard herself say, "What happens at the end of the year?" Jaehyun's eyes gleamed. "You disappear. Clean break. No attachments. I'll even provide you with a new identity if you want one. No emotional involvement. None. Just business. Purely transactional." Amara looked around the destroyed ballroom one more time, at the life she'd built on hard work and invisibility, at the safe, small existence she'd carved out through sheer determination. Then she looked at the man in the wheelchair, at the broken king offering her a crown made of blood and money, $10 million. 1 year. "I want 15 million, she said. Jaehyun's eyebrows rose slightly, then that dangerous smile returned. Done. Her heart slammed against her ribs. And I want it in writing, full contract, legal protections, exit clause. My lawyers will draft it within the hour. I want my own lawyer to review it. I'll pay for them. She took a deep breath, her entire body shaking. Then I want one more thing. Name it. Respect. She met his eyes directly. I don't care how your world works or what people expect. If I'm going to be your wife, even temporarily, you will treat me like a human being, not a transaction. No public humiliation, no cruelty. Whatever happens behind closed doors stays there, but in front of others, we are partners. Understood? Something shifted in his expression. Understood. Then yes. The word came out barely above a whisper. I'll marry you. Jaehyun nodded once, then pulled out his phone and made a single call. Do-hyun, get the lawyer and a private officiant. We have a wedding to finish. He hung up and looked at Amara. You have 30 minutes to change your mind. And if I do? Then I'll transfer $2 million to your account as compensation for your time, and you'll never hear from me again. His voice went soft. But if you stay, then I become the most controversial woman in Korea. At minimum. She laughed, a sharp, slightly hysterical sound that echoed through the empty ballroom. This is completely insane. Yes, I should run. Probably. But I'm not going to. Jaehyun's smile turned genuine for just a moment. No, I don't think you are. 28 minutes later, Amara stood at the altar in her dark blue coordinator's dress, facing a man in a wheelchair whose name terrified half of Asia. The officiant spoke in rapid Korean while a lawyer recorded everything on 3 separate cameras for legal documentation. No guests, no family, no music or flowers or champagne, just 2 people making a deal that would either save them both or destroy everything. When the officiant asked if she took Kang Jae-hyun as her husband, Amara heard herself say, I do, and felt her entire life pivot on those 2 words. When Jae-hyun said the same thing, his eyes never left hers. The officiant pronounced them married at 3:47 a.m., and Amara Vaughn became Amara Kang, wife of the most dangerous man in South Korea. Jae-hyun reached up from his wheelchair and took her hand, his grip firm and warm and startlingly gentle. Welcome to the underworld, Mrs. Kang. She squeezed back, her fingers trembling. Don't make me regret this. Too late for that. He was right. By dawn, the news broke across every media outlet in Korea. The Mafia boss, abandoned by his fiancée, had married a complete unknown within hours of the scandal. Photos of Amara leaving the hotel beside Jae-hyun's wheelchair hit social media like a bomb. The comments started immediately. Who is she? Gold digger. He married his event coordinator. She's black? In Korea? This is a publicity stunt. She trapped a disabled man. Disgusting. Amara read them in the back of the armored SUV, taking them to Jae-hyun's oceanfront mansion, her phone lighting up with notifications so fast the screen couldn't keep up. Her mother called 6 times. Her boss called 12. News outlets requested interviews. Hate messages flooded her social media. Jae-hyun glanced at her screen. You should delete those. I've handled worse. She locked her phone and looked out the window at the Busan skyline turning gold with sunrise. Does it get easier? The attention? The hate? He was quiet for a moment. No. You just learned to stop caring about anyone's opinion except your own. How long did that take you? His smile turned bitter. I'll let you know when it happens. The SUV pulled through massive iron gates and up a long driveway lined with cherry trees. The mansion appeared through the morning mist, modern architecture mixed with traditional Korean elements, all of it perched on a cliff overlooking the ocean. Beautiful, isolated, fortified. Amara counted at least 8 security cameras before they even reached the entrance. Do-hyun opened her door and helped her out, while 2 other bodyguards flanked Jae-hyun's wheelchair. The head of house, an older woman with steel gray hair and sharp eyes, waited at the entrance. This is Mrs. Choi, Jae-hyun said as they entered. She runs the household staff. Anything you need, ask her. Mrs. Choi bowed slightly, her expression carefully neutral, but her eyes evaluating. Welcome, Mrs. Kang. The title felt wrong in Amara's mouth. Thank you. They entered a massive foyer with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the ocean. Modern art on the walls. Marble floors. Everything expensive and cold and perfectly curated. Jae-hyun's home looked exactly like what it was. A fortress pretending to be a house. Your room is on the 2nd floor, he said, rolling toward an elevator. East wing. Private bathroom, walk-in closet. Mrs. Choi will have your belongings moved from your apartment by tonight. Amara followed him into the elevator. Separate rooms. Did you expect otherwise? Just confirming the boundaries? The elevator rose smoothly. We'll need to establish a schedule for public appearances. Charity events, business dinners, family gatherings. He glanced at her. My mother will want to meet you. Your mother? Unfortunately, yes. She's traditional. Meaning she'll hate me. She hates everyone. Don't take it personally. The elevator opened onto a long hallway lined with closed doors. Jae-hyun led her to the last one on the right and pushed it open. The room was stunning. King bed with silk sheets, sitting area with ocean views, bathroom big enough to live in. Her suitcases were already waiting near the closet. Get some sleep, Jae-hyun said from the doorway. We have a syndicate meeting at noon. Amara turned. Today? I told you. My enemies are already moving. We need to show strength immediately. His eyes met hers. Can you handle it? She thought about the $15 million sitting in an offshore account with her name on it. She thought about the contract guaranteeing her safety. She thought about the man in the wheelchair who'd offered her a way out of invisibility. I can handle it, she said. Good. He started to roll away, then paused. Amara. Yes? You stepped between me and a loaded gun tonight. His voice went soft. That was either the bravest thing I've ever seen or the stupidest. I'm still deciding which. Maybe both. That dark smile returned. Maybe. He left, and Amara stood alone in her new bedroom overlooking the ocean, watching the sun rise over a life she didn't recognize anymore. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She opened the message. You made a mistake marrying him. Enjoy your last few months alive. Her hands started shaking. Welcome to the underworld, the text seemed to say. Welcome to hell. Amara didn't sleep. She stood at the floor-to-ceiling window watching the ocean turn from black to gray to pale gold, her phone clutched in one hand, that death threat burning in her mind like acid. The message had come from a burner number. Untraceable, deliberate, designed to terrify. It worked. By 7 a.m., exhaustion pressed against her skull like a vice. But every time she closed her eyes, she saw Young Ho's hand moving toward his jacket, saw the cold calculation in his eyes, saw a future where she became another casualty in a war she barely understood. A knock at the door made her jump. "Mrs. Kang?" Mrs. Choi's voice came through, clipped and professional. "Breakfast is ready. Mr. Kang requests your presence." Amara's reflection in the window looked wrong. Same face, same body, but everything underneath had shifted overnight. She'd become someone else the moment she said, "I do," to a man in a wheelchair surrounded by violence. "I'll be down in 10 minutes, she called back. She showered fast, letting scalding water beat against her shoulders while her mind spun through scenarios. The syndicate meeting was in 5 hours. She had no idea what to expect, no idea how to act, no idea if she'd even survive the day. $15 million, she reminded herself. 1 year, then freedom, if she lived that long. She dressed in a black pantsuit from her suitcase. Professional, understated, forgettable. Then she caught herself in the mirror and stopped. Forgettable wouldn't work anymore. She'd married the most notorious man in Korea. Invisible wasn't an option. She changed into a deep burgundy dress instead. Elegant but bold, the kind of thing that demanded attention instead of deflecting it. If she was going to walk into a room full of criminals, she'd do it looking like she belonged there, even if her hands shook while fixing her hair. The dining room sat on the main floor with windows overlooking a perfectly manicured garden. Jae-hyun waited at the head of a table that could seat 20, his wheelchair positioned precisely, his attention focused on a tablet while he ate breakfast one-handed. He looked up when she entered. His gaze traveled over her dress, lingered for half a second, then returned to her face. "Bold choice," he said. "You told me we need to show strength." She sat down 3 chairs away, maintaining distance. "Figured I should look the part." "The part being?" "Your wife." Something flickered across his expression. Mrs. Choi appeared with coffee and a plate of food Amar couldn't imagine eating. Her stomach felt like broken glass. Jae-hyun dismissed Mrs. Choi with a gesture, waited until they were alone, then set down his tablet. "You got a message last night." It wasn't a question. Amara's spine stiffened. "How did you—" "I monitor all communications coming into this house." His voice stayed level. "Security protocol. The threat came from a burner phone registered in Jeju, Young Ho's territory. So he's already making moves. He's testing boundaries, seeing if threats will crack you before the meeting." Jae-hyun's eyes narrowed. "Will they?" "No." "Are you sure? Because if you walk into that conference room showing fear, every underboss in my organization will smell blood." Amara met his stare directly. "I stepped between you and a gun last night. You think a text message is going to break me?" His mouth curved slightly. "Fair point. But I need to know what I'm walking into." She leaned forward. "This meeting, what exactly happens there?" "Power assessment. Every crew leader will be watching to see if our marriage stabilizes my position or confirms my weakness." He picked up his coffee. "They'll test you, insult you, try to provoke a reaction. Your job is to sit beside me and show nothing." "Show nothing." "No fear, no anger, no emotion whatsoever." His voice went hard. "The moment you react, they win. The moment you show vulnerability, I lose control. Understand? You want me to be a prop. I want you to be a queen." He set down the cup with controlled precision. "Queens don't flinch when peasants throw stones." The words landed like a challenge. Amara studied him across the table, this man who'd bought a wife with $15 million, who commanded an empire from a wheelchair, who'd been publicly humiliated less than 12 hours ago, but somehow still radiated authority. "What happened to you?" she asked quietly. His expression went blank. "What?" "The assassination attempt, 18 months ago." She kept her voice steady. "What actually happened?" "That's not relevant." "You're asking me to walk into a room full of killers and play your wife. I think it's pretty fucking relevant." Silence stretched between them, sharp and dangerous. For a moment she thought he'd shut down completely, retreat behind that wall of cold control. Instead, he spoke. "Ambush. Highway outside Seoul. 6 men with automatic weapons and a backup truck blocking the exit." His voice stayed flat, emotionless. "They killed my driver first, then my bodyguard. Then they focused on me." Amar's chest tightened. I took 3 bullets before the car flipped. Spine, left shoulder, ribs. Woke up in a private hospital 3 days later and couldn't feel anything below my waist. He met her eyes. The doctor said I'd never walk again. Said I should be grateful to be alive. Said a lot of things that didn't matter because my empire was already falling apart. But you held it together. Barely. Fear keeps men in line, but fear requires the threat of violence. Hard to be threatening when you can't stand. His jaw tightened. The engagement to Miran was supposed to fix that. Her family's backing, their resources, their reputation. Together we would have been untouchable. But she walked out. She called me a cripple in front of 200 witnesses and walked out. The words came out sharp enough to cut. So yes, I'm asking you to be a prop. I'm asking you to sit beside me and prove that I'm still capable of command, still dangerous, still worth following. He paused. Can you do that? Amara thought about the text message. Thought about Young Ho's calculating eyes. Thought about every moment in her life when people underestimated her because of her race, her gender, her background. Yes, she said. I can do that. Good. Because if today goes wrong, we're both dead by sunset. The syndicate meeting took place in a private room at the back of a high-end restaurant in downtown Busan. No signs. No public entrance. Just a reinforced steel door guarded by men with guns under their jackets. Do-hyun drove them in an armored SUV with 2 chase vehicles. The entire convoy moved through traffic like a funeral procession. Slow, deliberate, unstoppable. Amara sat beside Jae-hyun in the back, her hands folded in her lap to hide the trembling, her spine straight, her face carefully blank. Remember, Jae-hyun said as they approached. No emotion, no reaction. You are stone. I'm stone, she repeated, and if someone disrespects you, I do nothing. Because? Because queens don't flinch when peasants throw stones. His hand moved suddenly, covering hers. The touch shocked her. Warm, firm, deliberate. You can do this? She nodded, not trusting her voice. The SUV stopped. Do-hyun opened the door. Jae-hyun rolled out first while bodyguards flanked the vehicle like a military operation. Then Amara stepped out into camera flashes and shouted questions from reporters who somehow knew about the meeting. Mrs. Kang, how did you meet your husband? Is the marriage legitimate? Are you pregnant? Did you trap a disabled man for money? Jae-hyun didn't stop. He rolled toward the entrance with Amara beside him, one hand resting lightly on the back of his wheelchair. A small gesture that photographers would interpret however they wanted. Inside, the restaurant staff vanished immediately. Just security and silence as they moved through a kitchen toward the back room. The conference room door opened. 12 men sat around a massive table. Crew leaders, underbosses, financial controllers. The infrastructure of Jae-hyun's criminal empire gathered in one place to judge whether their king was still worth following. Young Ho sat directly across from the head of the table, his expression neutral, but his eyes sharp. Everyone stood when Jae-hyun entered, a show of respect, or a test to see if the paralyzed boss would show weakness by remaining seated. Jae-hyun rolled to the head of the table and stopped. Sit. They sat. Amara took the chair immediately to his right, positioning herself as an equal, not a decoration. A few eyebrows rose. Someone coughed. Young Ho's mouth curved slightly. Gentlemen, Jae-hyun began, his voice carrying through the room with absolute authority. I'm aware the events of last night have created questions about stability, about leadership, about the future direction of this organization. Silence. Heavy. Waiting. So let's address those questions directly. He gestured to Amara. This is Amara Kang, my wife. Any disrespect shown to her will be considered a personal insult to me and dealt with accordingly. Are we clear? Murmurs of agreement, but the tension didn't break. An older man at the far end spoke up. Park Jin-woo, head of the Incheon operations. With respect, boss, the marriage happened very suddenly. People are asking questions about legitimacy. Let them ask. The Seo family has already begun pulling their support from joint operations. Without their backing, we adapt. Jae-hyun cut him off. The Seo family made their position clear last night. We move forward without them. Young Ho leaned back in his chair. Move forward how, exactly? Half our Western expansion relied on their distribution networks. We lose those. We lose territory. We lose territory, smaller crews start thinking they can take it. Then we remind them why they shouldn't. With what? Young Ho's voice sharpened. Threats? The entire underworld watched you get humiliated last night, watched you sit in that wheelchair while your fiancé called you a cripple. Forgiveness for speaking plainly, boss, but right now you look vulnerable. The room went dead silent. Amara felt every eye turned toward Jae-hyun, waiting to see how he'd respond to a direct challenge. Her pulse hammered in her throat, but she kept her expression blank, her posture relaxed, her hands still. Stone, she reminded herself. You are stone. Jae-hyun's response came quiet and cold. Do I? Yes. Young Ho met his stare. And vulnerability in our world is death. We need a plan, a show of force, something that proves you're still the same man you were before the accident. The same man. Jae-hyun smiled, and it was the most terrifying expression Amar had ever seen. Tell me, Young Ho, when was the last time you saw that man? Boss, 18 months ago, I could walk, I could fight, I could personally execute anyone who challenged my authority. Jae-hyun's voice dropped even lower. Is that the man you want back? I want a leader who can protect this organization. From what? Rival syndicates? Police investigations? Internal betrayal? He let the words hang in the air. Or are you worried I can't protect you specifically? Young Ho's jaw tightened. I'm worried about all of us. Liar. The accusation cracked through the room like a gunshot. You're worried about yourself, Jae-hyun continued, his eyes locked on Young Ho. You're wondering if this is your moment. If the cripple in the wheelchair is weak enough to overthrow. If you move fast, maybe you can take control before anyone else tries. That's not... Yes, it is. Jae-hyun leaned forward. And here's what you need to understand. I survived 3 bullets and a car crash that should have killed me. I rebuilt this empire from a hospital bed. I held every single one of you in line despite not being able to stand. His voice turned to ice. So when you look at me and see vulnerability, what you're actually seeing is a man too dangerous to kill even when he's broken. Remember that. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Then Young Ho smiled slowly. Noted, boss. But his eyes said something different. His eyes said, we'll see. The meeting continued for 2 hours. Financial reports, territory disputes, operational updates. Amara sat perfectly still beside Jae-hyun, saying nothing, showing nothing, while men discussed murder and extortion like quarterly earnings. Twice, someone made a veiled comment about her presence. Once, Park Jin-woo suggested perhaps sensitive matters should be discussed privately. Another time, a younger underboss asked if the American understood Korean well enough to follow along. Each time, Jae-hyun shut it down immediately with a look that could melt steel. And each time, Amara felt the weight of being tested, evaluated, judged as either a weakness or a strength in Jae-hyun's arsenal. By the time the meeting ended, her entire body ached from the effort of remaining motionless. They left through the same entrance, same convoy, same military precision. But this time, the reporter's questions felt sharper, more aggressive. Mrs. Kang, did you know your husband is a criminal? Are you afraid for your life? How much did he pay you? Amara kept walking, her hand on Jae-hyun's wheelchair, her expression blank. Inside the SUV, the door closed on the chaos outside. Silence. You did well, Jae-hyun said finally. Amara's hands started shaking uncontrollably. She pressed them between her knees, trying to stop the tremors, trying to breathe normally. Hey. His voice softened. Look at me. She turned her head. You survived your first syndicate meeting. Most people don't. He studied her face. How do you feel? Like I'm going to throw up. That's normal. Is it also normal to want to run screaming from a moving vehicle? His mouth twitched. Only if you're smart. A laugh bubbled up in her chest, sharp, slightly hysterical. She pressed her hand over her mouth, trying to contain it, but the sound came out anyway. Jae-hyun watched her with an expression she couldn't read. What? Nothing. Just... She gestured vaguely at everything. Yesterday I was coordinating corporate events and worrying about seating charts. Today I sat in a room full of gangsters pretending to be furniture while they planned crimes. It's absurd. Welcome to marriage. That startled another laugh out of her. Is that what this is? For the next year. He glanced out the window as they merged onto the highway. Then you disappear and never think about me again. Something about the way he said it made her chest tighten, like he'd already resigned himself to being forgotten. What if I can't? She asked quietly. He turned back to her. Can't what? Forget. After a year of living in your world, dealing with your enemies, pretending to be your wife, she met his eyes. What if I can't just walk away and pretend none of it happened? Then you'll learn, the same way everyone learns. His voice went flat. Distance and time eventually erase everything. That's depressing. That's survival. The SUV pulled through the mansion gates. Amara had been gone less than 6 hours, but the house already felt different, less like a fortress, more like a prison. Do-hyun opened her door. She climbed out on shaking legs, exhaustion finally catching up to her body. 2 hours of sleep in 36 hours. A death threat. A syndicate meeting. Marriage to a stranger. She made it to the front door before her knees gave out. Jae-hyun appeared beside her immediately, his wheelchair positioned to catch her weight before she hit the ground. Whoa! Easy. I'm fine. She wasn't fine. The world tilted sideways. Do-hyun! Jae-hyun called sharply. Help her inside. Strong hands caught her elbows. Do-hyun practically carried her through the entrance and up the elevator to her room. Mrs. Choi appeared with water and crackers, her expression disapproving but efficient. Amara collapsed on the bed fully dressed, the room spinning slightly. You need to eat, Mrs. Choi said firmly. Later. Now. The older woman's voice turned stern. You cannot survive this life on adrenaline alone, girl. Eat something or I will call Mr. Kang and he will make you. That threat was enough. Amara forced down crackers and water while Mrs. Choi watched like a disapproving hawk. Then blessed darkness pulled her under before she could even remove her shoes. She woke to screaming. The sound ripped through her sleep like claws, dragging her back to consciousness with her heart already racing. For a confused second, she didn't know where she was. Then memory crashed back. Mansion, marriage, mafia. The screaming came from somewhere below. Male voice. Guttural. Agonized. Amara stumbled out of bed, her dress wrinkled, her mind foggy. The clock said 11 p.m. She'd slept for 9 hours straight. The screaming stopped suddenly, replaced by cursing. Low, vicious, filled with rage and pain. She knew that voice. Her feet moved before her brain caught up, pulling her into the hallway, toward the stairs, down to the main floor where light spilled from beneath a closed door near the back of the house. Security stood outside. They moved to block her. Mrs. Kang, one of them said carefully. Mr. Kang is occupied. Perhaps you should... Another scream cut him off. This one worse. This one broken. Amara's hands curled into fists. What's happening in there? Physical therapy. He does this every night. It's better if... She pushed past them and opened the door. The room beyond was a fully equipped rehabilitation gym. Parallel bars, weight machines, resistance equipment, everything designed to help paralyzed patients rebuild strength. Jae-hyun sat on a mat in the center of the space, his shirt soaked with sweat, his face twisted with pain and fury. One of his legs was extended in front of him, strapped into some kind of brace. His hands gripped the parallel bars on either side, his entire body shaking with effort, trying to stand, trying and failing. A physical therapist crouched nearby, his expression professionally neutral. Boss, that's enough for tonight. Your muscles need... Again, Jae-hyun growled. You've already done 30 reps. Any more and you risk serious injury. I said again. The therapist's mouth compressed into a thin line, but he moved to assist. Jae-hyun pulled against the bars, his arms straining, his face going red with effort. For a second, his body lifted slightly. Then his legs gave out, and he crashed back down onto the mat with a sound that made Amara's teeth ache. Fuck! He slammed his fist against the floor. Fuck, fuck, fuck! The therapist tried to help him. Jae-hyun shoved him away violently. Get out! Boss, get out! The therapist hesitated, then bowed slightly and left quickly, relief obvious in every line of his body. which left Amara standing in the doorway staring at a man completely stripped of every defense, every wall, every ounce of control. Jaehyun's head turned. He saw her. His expression went from rage to shock to something darker. Shame. "I told them not to let anyone in," he said hoarsely. "They tried." She stepped fully into the room and closed the door behind her. "How long do you do this every night?" "That's not your concern." "How long?" His jaw tightened. 3 hours. 4 if I can stand it. "Every night?" "Yes." "For 18 months?" "Yes." Amara looked at the parallel bars, at the specialized equipment, at the man sitting on the floor drenched in sweat and frustration. "The doctor said you'd never walk again." "The doctors were wrong. Or you're torturing yourself for nothing." His eyes flashed. "You don't understand." "I understand that you're destroying your body because you can't accept being human." She moved closer, her voice hard. "I understand that you'd rather break yourself every night than admit there are some things you can't control." "I don't need a lecture." "No. You need help." She crouched down in front of him, close enough to see the exhaustion carved into every line of his face. "But you won't ask for it because asking makes you weak. So instead, you come down here alone every night and scream into the void, hoping eventually your body will just obey." Silence crashed between them. Then Jaehyun laughed, raw and bitter. "You've known me for 24 hours. You don't know anything about me. I know you're human. I know you're in pain. I know that pretending otherwise is slowly killing you." Her voice softened. "I know because I saw the same thing in my father before he died." That stopped him. "What?" "Lung cancer, stage 4. The words came out flat, automatic. He refused treatment because he didn't want to look weak in front of his congregation. Kept preaching every Sunday, kept smiling, kept insisting he was fine, right up until he collapsed in the middle of service and never woke up. Jaehyun stared at her. "So yes," Amara continued, "I understand exactly what you're doing, and I'm telling you right now, it doesn't end well. Your father had cancer. I just have a spine that won't cooperate. You have shame, same thing that killed him." She met his eyes directly. "And if you keep this up, it'll kill you too." For a long moment, nobody moved. Then Jaehyun's shoulders sagged slightly. I can't stop." "Why not?" "Because the moment I stop trying, the moment I accept this," he gestured at the wheelchair visible through the doorway, "is the moment I become what Mirren called me, what everyone thinks, a cripple, powerless, weak." "You really believe that?" "I ruled an empire through fear and strength. Now I can't even stand on my own." His voice cracked slightly. "So, yes, I believe that." Amara took a slow breath. Then she stood and held out her hand. He looked at it like she'd offered poison. "What are you doing?" "Helping you back to your chair." "I don't need—" "Yes, you do." She kept her hand extended, and there's no shame in accepting help from someone who actually gives a damn whether you live or die. Jaehyun stared up at her for 3 seconds that felt like hours. Then, slowly, he took her hand. His grip was strong despite the exhaustion, his palm rough with calluses. She braced herself and pulled while he used the parallel bars for leverage. Together, they got him upright enough to transfer back into the wheelchair waiting nearby. He collapsed into it, breathing hard, his face gray with pain. Amara's hands shook as she released him. "When was the last time you actually slept through the night?" "I don't remember." "That's not sustainable. Neither is running a criminal empire from a wheelchair. But here we are." He looked up at her, and for the first time since they met, she saw him completely unmasked, vulnerable, exhausted, human. "Why are you here?" "I heard screaming." "No, I mean, why are you still here? You could have run the moment you saw this. Could have gone back to your room and pretended you never witnessed your terrifying Mafia husband falling apart on a gym floor." His eyes searched hers. "So why didn't you?" Amara thought about the question. Thought about the man who'd offered her $15 million to play a part. Thought about the broken king who'd sat in that ballroom drowning in shame while the world watched. "Because you're not weak," she said quietly. "You're exhausted. There's a difference." Something shifted in his expression. "You really believe that?" "Yes." Even after seeing this, he gestured at the gym, the sweat, the evidence of his nightly torture. Especially after seeing this, she held his gaze, because only strong people have the courage to keep trying when every attempt ends in failure. Jae-hyun's throat worked. For a second, she thought he might actually cry, might let himself break completely in front of another human being. Instead, he looked away. You should go. Jae-hyun, please. The word came out hoarse. Shh, just go. She wanted to argue, wanted to stay and force him to accept comfort or help or basic human connection. But the exhaustion in his voice stopped her. Okay, she said softly. But tomorrow night, I'm coming back. And I'm not leaving. Why? Because apparently I'm terrible at self-preservation. She moved toward the door, then paused. And because you are not weak for needing help. You're human. She left before he could respond. Back in her room, she sat on the edge of the bed with her head in her hands, her heart hammering, her mind spinning. What the hell was she doing? This was supposed to be simple. 1 year, $15 million. No emotional involvement. But she'd just seen Kang Jae-hyun, the most feared criminal in Korea, completely broken. Had seen the pain he hid every moment of every day. Had seen the man behind the monster. And instead of running, she'd offered her hand. Her phone buzzed. She picked it up expecting another death threat, another message designed to terrorize. Instead, it was from Jae-hyun. Thank you. 2 words. That was all. But somehow they changed everything. Because the distance between them, the careful boundaries they'd established, the business arrangement that protected them both, had just shattered completely. And neither of them could take it back. The next morning, Amara woke to find her bedroom door locked from the outside. She tried the handle 3 times, confusion turning to cold dread as the reality sank in. Her phone was gone from the nightstand. The windows, reinforced she now realized, wouldn't open more than an inch. She was trapped. Mrs. Choi? She knocked hard on the door. Hello? Anyone? Footsteps approached. A key turned. The door opened to reveal Do-hyun, his expression professionally blank but his posture tense. Mr. Kang requests that you remain in your room this morning, he said. Amar's pulse spiked. Why? Security concerns. Someone will bring breakfast shortly. Do-hyun... He closed the door. The lock clicked. She stood there breathing hard, her mind racing through possibilities. Had something happened during the night? Another threat? An attack on the house? Or had Jae-hyun decided she'd seen too much in that gym, witnessed too much vulnerability, and now needed to be contained? 20 minutes later, Mrs. Choi arrived with a breakfast tray and 0 answers to any questions. Then the door locked again, leaving Amara alone with cold coffee and mounting terror. 3 hours passed. No phone, no explanation, no contact except silent staff delivering meals like she was a prisoner in a luxury cell. By noon, rage replaced fear. She grabbed one of her heels and started pounding on the door with the metal tip, the sound echoing through the hallway like gunshots. Let me out! I swear if someone doesn't open this door right now... The lock turned. The door swung open. Jae-hyun sat in his wheelchair, his expression carved from stone. Behind him stood 4 bodyguards she didn't recognize, not his usual security team. Get dressed, he said coldly. Something formal. We have a press conference in 2 hours. What the hell is going on? She didn't move. Why was I locked in here? Because this morning, someone leaked our marriage contract to every major news outlet in Korea. His voice stayed level, but his eyes burned. The entire country now knows our relationship started as a business transaction worth $15 million. The floor tilted beneath her feet. What? Turn on the television. Any channel. You're the top story. His jaw tightened. The gold digger who trapped a disabled Mafia boss for money. The opportunist who took advantage of a moment of weakness. The foreigner who manipulated her way into one of Korea's most powerful families. Amar's breath came in short gasps. I didn't leak anything. I know. Then why lock me in? Because within 30 minutes of the story breaking, this house received 47 death threats specifically targeting you. The security team needed time to evaluate and neutralize immediate dangers. He gestured toward the hallway. Now get dressed. We're going public. Public? Press conference, national broadcast. We're telling the truth before the narrative destroys us both. His eyes met hers. Unless you'd prefer to take your 15 million and run right now. I'll have Do-hyun escort you to a private airport. New identity, clean exit, everything we promised. She stared at him. You're giving me an out. I'm giving you a choice. Because what comes next? He exhaled slowly. It's going to get worse before it gets better. Much worse. And I won't force you to stay. Amara thought about the text message, thought about being locked in a room, thought about 47 death threats. Then she thought about the man in the gym last night, broken and exhausted and desperately trying to prove he was still human. What do you need me to do? She asked. Something flickered across his face. Relief, maybe. Or surprise. Tell the truth, he said. All of it. No scripts, no lies. Just the brutal, honest truth about why you agreed to marry a stranger. He paused. The public might hate us anyway, but at least they'll hate us for real reasons instead of manufactured ones. She nodded once. Give me 30 minutes. 40 minutes later, they sat side by side in front of a wall of cameras in a hotel conference room downtown. Every major network in Korea present. Reporters packed in so tight security had to create barriers. Jae-hyun wore a black suit. Amara wore a simple navy dress. No jewelry, minimal makeup, nothing that could be interpreted as expensive or showy. The questions started before they were even seated. Mrs. Kang, did you marry for money? Mr. Kang, did you buy a wife? Is the marriage legitimate? Are you planning to divorce? Jae-hyun held up one hand. The room fell silent instantly. Even now, even disgraced, his authority still commanded attention. We'll take questions after, he said. But first, my wife and I want to make a statement. He looked at Amara. She looked back. No script. No safety net. Just truth. Yes, Jae-hyun said into the microphone. Our marriage started as a contract. The room erupted. Cameras flashed like lightning. Reporters shouted questions over each other. Jae-hyun waited until the noise died down, then continued. 18 months ago, an assassination attempt left me paralyzed. Last week, my fiancé publicly humiliated me and walked out of our wedding because I'm disabled. Within hours, my entire empire began falling apart. His voice stayed level, emotionless, but every word landed like a hammer. I needed a wife immediately. Someone who could stand beside me and prove I was still capable of leadership. Someone brave enough to enter the underworld without running. He turned slightly toward Amara. This woman stepped between me and a loaded gun without flinching, so I offered her $15 million to marry me for 1 year. The reporters went insane. Amara's hands shook in her lap. This was it. The moment her life became permanently public, permanently judged, permanently defined by this single choice. A female reporter near the front stood up. Mrs. Kang, do you deny being a gold digger? Every eye in the room turned to her. Amara leaned toward the microphone, her heart slamming against her ribs. No, she said clearly. I don't deny it. Shocked silence. I took the money, she continued, her voice steady despite the terror. I took $15 million to marry a man I barely knew because I've spent 5 years in this country being invisible, being judged, being told I don't belong. That money represents freedom, security, the ability to build a life on my own terms instead of constantly fighting for scraps. She could feel the judgment radiating from the crowd, but she pushed forward. So yes, I married for money, but you know what else I did? Her voice hardened. I married a man who everyone abandoned the moment he showed weakness. I married someone the entire world called a cripple, someone powerful families threw away like garbage because he couldn't walk anymore. I looked at a human being drowning in shame and humiliation, and I chose to stand beside him. Jae-hyun's hand moved, covering hers on the table. The cameras went wild. Does that make me a gold digger? Amara asked. Maybe. But it also makes me the only person in this entire country who saw Kang Jae-hyun as something more than just a disability, or a scandal, or a business opportunity. Another reporter jumped up. So you're saying this is real? The marriage? Amara glanced at Jae-hyun. He looked back. The truth was, she didn't know anymore. What started as a transaction had become something else the moment she found him in that gym. The moment he sent that text saying thank you. The moment the distance between them collapsed completely. I'm saying, Amara answered carefully, That sometimes the most real things start in the messiest ways possible. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is admit you don't have all the answers. The press conference lasted 90 minutes, brutal, exhausting, relentless. But by the end, something shifted in the room. Not acceptance exactly, but a grudging acknowledgement that at least they were honest. In the SUV afterward, Amara collapsed against the seat, her entire body shaking. "You did well," Jae-hyun said quietly. "I just confessed to being a gold digger on national television. You told the truth. That's more than most people in my position ever do." He studied her face. "Are you okay? Ask me in a week when the death threats triple." His mouth twitched. "Fair." They rode in silence for several minutes. Then Jae-hyun's phone buzzed. He checked it, and his entire expression went dark. "What?" Amara asked. "Young-ho just called an emergency meeting. Tonight. Every crew leader." His jaw tightened. "He's making his move." "Already?" The press conference gave him ammunition. He'll argue that admitting the truth publicly makes us look weak, proves I've lost control. Jae-hyun's hands clenched into fists. "He's going to try to remove me as head of the organization." Amara's chest went tight. "Can he do that?" "If he has enough support, yes. Majority vote from the crew leaders can force me out." His voice turned bitter. "And after today's performance, he might have exactly that." The emergency meeting took place in an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of Busan. No security except what each crew leader brought personally. No formality, just violence waiting to happen. Amara insisted on coming despite Jae-hyun's protests. "If this is about perception," she argued, "then I need to be there. Show unity. This isn't a press conference. These men will kill you if they think it benefits them." "Then protect me." He stared at her for a long moment, then nodded once. The warehouse was freezing, industrial lights casting harsh shadows across concrete floors. 13 crew leaders stood in a loose circle, Young-ho at the center like he'd already claimed leadership. Jae-hyun rolled in with Amara beside him, flanked by Do-hyun and 4 bodyguards, outnumbered 3-1. "Young-ho," Jae-hyun said coldly, "this better be important." "It is, boss." Young-ho's smile was sharp as broken glass. "We need to discuss your future with this organization." "My future was never up for discussion." "It is now." Young-ho gestured at the assembled crew leaders. "We've all watched you for 18 months. Watched you struggle. Watched you fight to maintain control from that wheelchair. We respected it. We followed you because you were strong enough to lead despite the disability." "But," Jae-hyun's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper, "but today you admitted it on national television that your marriage is fake. That you paid a woman to stand beside you because you were too weak to maintain power alone." Young-ho's eyes glittered. "You exposed vulnerability, admitted failure. That's not the man we follow." "I admitted honesty." "You admitted weakness." Young-ho looked around at the other leaders. "Show of hands. Who still believes Kang Jae-hyun is fit to lead this organization?" Amar's breath stopped. One by one, hands stayed down. Park Jin-woo, Kim Sang-min, Lee Jun-ho. 8 of the 13 crew leaders refused to raise their hands. Young-ho smiled. "Majority rules, boss. You're out." The warehouse went silent, except for the sound of safeties clicking off on multiple weapons. Jae-hyun didn't move. "You planned this." "I prepared for this," Young-ho corrected. "The moment Mirin walked out, I knew you were finished. I just had to wait for you to destroy yourself." He gestured at Amara. Bringing her along just accelerated the timeline. Rage flooded through Amara's chest. "You leaked the contract." "Did I?" Young-ho's smile widened. "Can you prove it?" "You son of a—" Jae-hyun's hand caught her arm, stopping her from lunging forward. His grip was iron. "It's over," Young-ho said. "Walk away, boss. Take your wife, take your money, disappear. Do that, and you live. Fight me, and everyone in this room dies, including her." Guns appeared in every shadow, at least 20 men surrounding them. Do-hyun moved closer to Jae-hyun, his hand inside his jacket. The other bodyguards tensed. "Stand down," Jae-hyun ordered quietly. "Boss, stand down!" His voice carried absolute authority even now, even surrounded, even defeated. "That's an order." Slowly, Do-hyun's hand moved away from his weapon. Jaehyun looked at Young-ho. You'll regret this. No, I won't. Young-ho gestured toward the exit. You have 24 hours to leave Korea. After that, you become a target like any other enemy of this organization. Amara wanted to scream, wanted to fight, wanted to burn this entire warehouse down with everyone inside it. But Jaehyun's hand stayed firm on her arm. Let's go. They turned toward the exit. The crowd parted slowly, weapons still trained on them from every angle. They were almost to the door when Young-ho spoke again. Oh, and boss, just so you know, his voice carried across the warehouse. Mirin didn't walk out on her own. I paid her to humiliate you, paid her very well. The entire wedding disaster was mine from the beginning. Jaehyun stopped walking. I needed you weak, Young-ho continued, clearly enjoying every word. Needed you desperate enough to make stupid decisions. Marrying a random event coordinator? He laughed. Perfect. Thank you for making this so easy. Amara felt Jaehyun's entire body go rigid beside her, felt the rage radiating off him like heat. Jaehyun, she said quietly. Don't. He destroyed everything. His voice shook. Everything. I know, but we're outnumbered and outgunned. And if you move right now, we die. Maybe I don't care anymore. Well, I do. She stepped in front of him, forcing him to look at her instead of Young-ho. I care. So we're walking out of here alive, and then we're going to figure out what comes next. Together. His eyes met hers, dark, furious, broken. Trust me, she whispered. For 3 seconds, she thought he'd refuse, thought he'd throw himself at Young-ho despite the guns, despite the odds, despite everything. Then his shoulders sagged slightly. Okay. They walked out together. Behind them, laughter echoed through the warehouse, the sound of men celebrating a fallen king. In the SUV, nobody spoke. Do-hyun drove with his jaw clenched so tight, Amara could hear his teeth grinding. The other bodyguards looked ready to commit murder. Jae-hyun stared out the window, his face completely blank. Boss, Do-hyun said finally. Orders? Go to the house, pack everything. We leave tonight. We could fight. 5 loyal crews would back you if we... No? Jae-hyun's voice was dead. It's over. Amara's chest ached watching him. This man who'd commanded an empire, who'd survived assassination and paralysis and humiliation, who'd fought for 18 months to prove he was still worthy of power, defeated by betrayal. At the mansion, staff moved quickly and efficiently, packing belongings with the speed of people who'd prepared for this possibility. Mrs. Choi supervised with red eyes but steady hands. Amara stood in her bedroom staring at suitcases she couldn't remember packing. Her phone, returned finally, showed hundreds of messages. Her mother, her friends, news outlets, people from her past she hadn't spoken to in years, all suddenly concerned or curious or judgmental. A knock at the door. Jae-hyun entered without waiting for permission. He looked destroyed, hair disheveled, shirt untucked, the careful control he always maintained completely shattered. I'm sorry, he said. Amara turned. For what? For dragging you into this. For putting you in danger. For... He gestured vaguely. Everything. You gave me a choice. I made it. I should have let you run when you had the chance. Stop. She crossed the room to stand in front of him. Listen to me very carefully. What happened tonight wasn't your fault. Young-ho planned this for months. You couldn't have prevented it. I could have been stronger, could have maintained control, could have... You're human. Humans fail. Her voice hardened. But humans also survive, and we're going to survive this. He laughed bitterly. How? My empire is gone. My reputation is destroyed. Every enemy I've ever made will come hunting the moment they realize I have no protection. His eyes met hers. You should take your money and disappear tonight. Change your name. Move to another country. Forget you ever met me. Is that what you want? I want you safe. That's not what I asked. She held his gaze. Do you want me to leave? Silence stretched between them, heavy and painful. No, he finally whispered. But you should anyway. Amara took a slow breath. Then she made a decision that would either save them both or destroy them completely. What if there was another way? She said quietly. He frowned. What? You lost your empire, your power, your control. Her mind raced through possibilities. But Young-ho made a mistake. What mistake? He let us walk out alive. Her voice turned sharp. He thinks you're broken, thinks you'll run, thinks you're too weak to fight back. She stepped closer. Prove him wrong. Jae-hyun stared at her. You want me to go to war? I want you to survive. And survival means taking back what's yours. With what army? What resources? I have nothing left. You have me. The words came out fierce. You have loyal men who would follow you into hell. You have intelligence, strategy, and 18 months of watching every single one of those crew leaders make mistakes. Her eyes locked onto his. Most importantly, you have something Young-ho doesn't. What? Nothing left to lose. She let that sink in. You're already dead in the underworld's eyes, already defeated, which means you can fight without rules, without restraint, without fear of consequences. Understanding dawned slowly across his face. You're talking about scorched earth. I'm talking about revolution. Her smile turned cold. Young-ho thinks he won. Let's show him what actual defeat looks like. For the first time since the warehouse, something sparked behind Jae-hyun's eyes. Not hope, exactly. Something darker. Something dangerous. This is insane, he said. Everything about our relationship has been insane from the beginning. If we do this, there's no going back, no peaceful exit. We fight until we win or we die. Then I guess we better win. He studied her face for a long moment, searching for doubt or fear or hesitation. He found none. Why? He asked quietly. Why would you risk everything for this? For me. Amara thought about the question, about the moment she stepped between him and a gun, about finding him broken in that gym, about the text message that said thank you, about the way his hand felt covering hers during the press conference. Because somewhere between survival and scandal, she said softly, you stopped being a transaction and became a person I actually give a damn about. His breath caught. So yes, she continued, I'm all in. No matter what comes next. She held out her hand. Are you? Jae-hyun looked at her hand. This woman who'd walked into his life by accident and somehow become the only real thing in it. Then he took it, his grip firm and certain. Yes, he said. I'm all in. And in that moment, with their empire destroyed and enemies circling and no safety net beneath them, they became something far more dangerous than a mafia boss and his contract wife. They became partners with absolutely nothing left to lose, which meant they could do anything. They didn't run. Instead, Jae-hyun made 3 phone calls that night from the mansion library, while Amara paced the floor with adrenaline screaming through her veins. The first call went to Min Hyuk-jae, head of the Gwangju crew, a man who'd served under Jae-hyun's father and had watched the empire build from nothing. The second went to Choi Min-seo, the logistics controller who managed supply chains across Southeast Asia. The third went to Dr. Kwon Ji-woo, a former military surgeon who ran an underground medical network and owed Jae-hyun her life twice over. Each conversation lasted less than 2 minutes. Each person agreed immediately. By dawn, they had the skeleton of an army. Small, loyal, absolutely willing to die. This is suicide, Do-hyun said flatly, standing in the library doorway with his arms crossed. Even with Hyuk-jae's crew, we're outnumbered 5-1. Young-ho controls the infrastructure, the weapon suppliers, the police connections. We have nothing. Jae-hyun looked up from the tactical map spread across his desk. We have surprise. He thinks I'm running. You should be running. Probably. That dark smile returned. But I'm not. Amara studied the map over his shoulder, marking crew territories, supply routes, weak points in Young-ho's network. Her background in event coordination made her brain work in logistics and timelines. She saw patterns where others saw chaos. Here, she said, pointing to a warehouse district in western Busan. Young-ho's weapons cache. He keeps it off the books because it's technically neutral territory. Jae-hyun's eyes narrowed. How do you know that? I coordinated a corporate event there 6 months ago. Saw shipments being moved through the back. Didn't think much of it at the time. Her finger traced the route. If We hit it first, take his weapons before he can distribute them to the crews. We level the playing field. Do-hyun stepped closer to the map. That facility has 24-hour security. Not security, Amar corrected. 2 guards and a night supervisor. I remember because they complained about being understaffed the entire time. She looked at Jae-hyun. He's arrogant. Thinks neutral territory keeps him safe. He's wrong. Jae-hyun's smile turned vicious. Do-hyun, gather everyone still loyal. We move in 4 hours. Boss, if this goes wrong, then we die fighting instead of running. I'll take that trade. Do-hyun stared at him for a long moment, then nodded once and left to make the calls. Amar's hands shook slightly as the reality hit. They were going to war. Actual war. Not metaphorical business battles, but real violence with real consequences. Jae-hyun noticed. You can still leave. Stop offering me exits. Her voice came out sharper than intended. I'm not abandoning you. This isn't your fight. It became my fight in the moment I married you. She met his eyes. For better or worse, remember? His throat worked. Those were just words. Not to me, they weren't. She moved around the desk to stand in front of him. Listen to me very carefully. I know I started this for money. I know it was supposed to be temporary. But somewhere between that ballroom and last night, something changed. Her voice dropped. You became mine to protect, just like I became yours. So stop trying to push me away and let me help you survive. Jae-hyun reached out slowly and took her hand, his grip warm and certain. You're either incredibly brave or completely insane. Probably both. He pulled her closer, and for just a moment they stood there in the library with war approaching and everything falling apart around them, holding on to each other like lifelines in a storm. Then his phone buzzed. Reality crashed back. Hyuk-jae's crew just arrived, he said, releasing her reluctantly. Time to move. The warehouse sat dark and silent under pre-dawn fog when they arrived in 3 unmarked vehicles. 12 people total. Jae-hyun's remaining loyalists, outnumbered and outgunned but moving with military precision. Amara stayed in the lead vehicle with Jae-hyun despite his protests. If this went wrong, they died together. She'd made her choice. Do-hyun and Hyuk-jae approached the facility's main entrance while 2 others moved to the back. The night supervisor, a middle-aged man smoking a cigarette near the loading dock, never saw them coming. 30 seconds later, the facility belonged to them. Inside, rows of shipping containers held enough weapons to arm a small military force. Rifles, handguns, ammunition, explosives, everything Young-ho needed to maintain control through violence. Take it all, Jae-hyun ordered. Every weapon, every bullet, load the trucks. They worked fast, emptying containers with practiced efficiency. Amara helped despite having no idea what half the equipment was, her heart slamming against her ribs with each passing minute. They were almost finished when headlights appeared outside. Company, Hyuk-jae said sharply. 3 SUVs pulled up to the entrance. Doors opened. 8 men emerged. Young-ho's security team arriving for a routine check. Do-hyun cursed under his breath. We're not done loading. Then we hold them off until we are. Jae-hyun rolled toward the entrance, his voice carrying absolute authority. Nobody fires unless I give the order. The lead security guard recognized him immediately. His hand went to his weapon. Kang, what the hell are you doing here? Taking back what's mine. Jae-hyun's voice was ice. Tell Young-ho his coup lasted exactly 14 hours. Now it ends. The guard pulled his weapon. You're outnumbered and outmatched. Surrender now or... Jae-hyun shot him. The sound exploded through the warehouse like thunder. The guard dropped, blood spreading across concrete. Chaos erupted. Young-ho's men opened fire. Jae-hyun's team returned shots from behind shipping containers. Bullets tore through metal and air while Amara dove behind a crate, her ears ringing, her breath coming in ragged gasps. This was real. This was actually happening. She watched Do-hyun take down 2 men with brutal efficiency. Watched Hyuk-jae drag an injured loyalist to cover. Watched Jae-hyun reload his weapon with steady hands despite being trapped in a wheelchair in the middle of a firefight. The man was absolutely insane, and she'd chosen to follow him into hell. The gunfight lasted 90 seconds. When the smoke cleared, 3 of Young-ho's men lay dead, 2 more injured, the rest retreating to their vehicles. Move, Jae-hyun shouted. Get the trucks loaded now. They finished in 3 minutes flat, working with desperation-fueled speed. Then they were rolling out with every weapon Young-ho owned packed into stolen trucks. In the vehicle, Amara's hands wouldn't stop shaking. She pressed them between her knees, trying to breathe normally, trying to process what she'd just witnessed. Jae-hyun glanced at her. "You okay?" "You shot someone." Her voice came out hoarse. "Yes." "You just shot him. He was going to shoot me first." His tone stayed matter-of-fact. "That's how this world works. Kill or be killed." "I know. I knew that intellectually, but seeing it," she swallowed hard, "that was different. This is who I am." His voice softened slightly. "This is what you signed up for when you chose to stay. If you want to change your mind, stop." She looked at him directly. "I'm not leaving. I'm just processing." He studied her face. "Most people don't process. They run. I'm not most people." That dark smile returned. "No, you're really not." They ditched the vehicles in an abandoned industrial area and transferred to clean cars. By sunrise, they were at a safe house in the mountains outside Busan, an isolated compound Hyukjae maintained for emergencies. Inside, the team counted weapons and assessed damage. 1 man injured but stable. 3 dead on Young-ho's side. The element of surprise completely spent. "He knows we're coming now," Hyukjae said, cleaning his weapon with methodical precision. "He'll fortify every position, increase security, maybe call in reinforcements from allied crews." "Good." Jae-hyun's eyes gleamed dangerously. "Let him waste resources on defense. We're not attacking his strongholds." Amara looked up from the tactical map she'd been studying. "Then what are we attacking?" "His reputation." Jae-hyun rolled closer to the map. "Young-ho took power by making me look weak. We take it back by making him look incompetent." "How?" "We hit him where it hurts most. His money." Jae-hyun's finger traced a route on the map. "Every syndicate runs on cash flow. Protection payments, smuggling operations, underground gambling. Young-ho controls it all now, which means he's responsible for making sure everyone gets paid." Understanding clicked in Amara's mind. "We disrupt the payments. We destroy them." His voice turned cold. "Every operation he runs, we sabotage. Every payment he owes, we intercept. Within 72 hours, every crew leader in his organization will be screaming for their money. And when he can't deliver," he smiled, "they'll remember who used to run things smoothly." "That's actually brilliant," Amara said slowly. "Financial warfare instead of direct confrontation." "It's also incredibly dangerous," Do-hyun added. "We'll be hitting multiple targets across the city simultaneously. Spread ourselves thin. If we make one mistake, Young-ho's men will surround and eliminate us." "Then we don't make mistakes." Jae-hyun looked around at his small team. "Hyukjae, you take the gambling operation in Nampo. Minseo, intercept the shipment coming through the eastern docks. Do-hyun, hit the protection payments in the financial district." He paused. "I'll handle the central bank transfer personally." "Boss," Do-hyun said carefully, "the bank is their most secure location, at least 15 armed guards. You go in there, you're not coming out. Probably not alone." Jae-hyun's gaze shifted to Amara. "Which is why I'm bringing backup." Her stomach dropped. "Me?" "You. I'm an event coordinator, not a soldier. You're intelligent, resourceful, and nobody knows your face yet." His eyes locked onto hers. "I need someone who can walk into that bank without raising suspicion. Someone who can get us inside before anyone realizes we're there." "And then what?" "Then we rob $30 million from the Korean underworld and disappear before they can stop us." The plan was absolutely insane, which was probably why Amara heard herself say, "Okay." 12 hours later, she walked into Hanseong Bank wearing a designer suit and carrying a briefcase containing falsified corporate documents. Her heart slammed so hard she could barely hear the ambient noise. Jae-hyun waited in a van outside with Do-hyun and 2 others, monitoring security cameras they'd hacked 90 minutes earlier. "You're clear," Jae-hyun's voice came through the hidden earpiece. "3rd floor, northwest corner, the transfer terminal." Amara moved through the lobby with practiced confidence, her event coordinator instincts taking over. She'd walked into hundreds of corporate spaces pretending to belong. This was just another performance, except this time, people would die if she failed. The 3rd floor security guard barely glanced at her credentials. forged perfectly by Minseo's document team. She entered the restricted area and headed for the transfer terminal, her palms sweating inside leather gloves. 2 minutes until the next scheduled security sweep, Jae-hyun said in her ear. Work fast. She inserted the USB drive Minseo had prepared, watched code scroll across the screen, barely breathing while the system processed the transfer request. 90 seconds. 60. 30. Transfer complete, Jae-hyun said. Get out. Now. Amara pulled the drive and walked back toward the elevator, forcing herself to move calmly despite every instinct screaming to run. The doors opened. 3 armed guards stepped out. Her heart stopped. Excuse me, the lead guard said. We need to see your credentials again. Amara's mind went blank. Then training kicked in. Years of handling difficult clients, managing confrontations, staying calm under pressure. Of course. She pulled out the forged documents with steady hands. Is there a problem? The guard studied them carefully. Too carefully. These look legitimate, he said slowly. But we weren't informed about any corporate access today. That's strange. My office confirmed the appointment this morning. She kept her voice professional, slightly annoyed. If there's been a miscommunication, I can call my supervisor. That won't be necessary. His hand moved toward his weapon. Please come with us. Amara. Jae-hyun's voice in her ear was sharp. Do not go with them. We're coming in. The elevator behind the guards exploded. Not literally, but 3 men burst out of the stairwell, moving with lethal precision. Do-hyun took down the first guard with a brutal strike. Hyuk-jae dropped the second. The third reached for his radio, but Jae-hyun shot him from his wheelchair, rolling out of the stairwell with a weapon braced against his armrest. Move! He shouted at Amara. She ran. They made it to the ground floor before alarms started screaming. Building security flooded the lobby, weapons drawn, exits blocked. Back entrance, Jae-hyun ordered, wheeling toward a side corridor while Do-hyun and Hyuk-jae provided cover fire. Bullets tore through marble and glass. Amara stayed low, her ears ringing, her entire body shaking with adrenaline. This was nothing like the warehouse. This was chaos, violence, death closing in from every direction. They burst through an emergency exit into an alley where the van waited with the engine running. Do-hyun literally threw Jae-hyun's wheelchair into the back while Hyuk-jae dragged Amara inside. Tires screamed as they peeled away from the building. Behind them, security vehicles gave chase. Lose them, Jae-hyun ordered the driver. The van careened through downtown Busan at suicidal speeds, weaving between traffic while bullets shattered the back window. Amara pressed herself against the floor, breathing in gasps, convinced they were all about to die. Then they turned into an underground parking garage, switched vehicles in 30 seconds flat, and emerged on the opposite side of the district just as police sirens converged on the original chase route. They'd escaped. Somehow, impossibly, they'd escaped. In the new vehicle, nobody spoke for 5 full minutes, just breathing, processing, surviving. Finally, Amara sat up. Did we get it? 30 million, Minseo confirmed from the front seat, her laptop showing the transferred funds. Distributed across 40 different accounts, untraceable. Jae-hyun leaned back against the seat, his face pale but his eyes burning with triumph. Young-ho just lost a month's worth of payments to every crew in his organization. They'll kill him for this, Hyuk-jae said. That's the idea. Amara looked at Jae-hyun, this man who'd just robbed the underworld's bank from a wheelchair, who'd orchestrated financial warfare while trapped in a body that wouldn't cooperate, who'd turned weakness into strategy and survived through pure ruthless intelligence. You're terrifying, she said. He smiled. You just helped rob $30 million from the Korean Mafia. You're not exactly innocent anymore. She laughed, sharp, slightly hysterical. No, I guess I'm not. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her check. A photo appeared on screen. Mirin, bound to a chair, bleeding from a cut above her eye, terror written across her face. Below the image, you have 12 hours to return the money and surrender, or the woman who started this all dies screaming. Your choice, boss. Amara's blood went cold. Jae-hyun, she showed him the phone. His expression went completely blank. Then something dark and furious flickered behind his eyes. He took Mirren, Amara said unnecessarily. Yes, the woman who humiliated you, who walked out, who was paid to destroy you. Her voice hardened. Are you really going to save her? Jaehyun stared at the photo for a long moment. Then he looked at Amara. What do you think I should do? He asked quietly. It was a test. She knew it was a test, knew he was asking if she was truly all in, truly willing to make the ruthless decisions this world required. She thought about Mirren calling Jaehyun a cripple, thought about the humiliation, the betrayal, the pain that woman caused. Then she thought about the man she'd found in that gym, broken and exhausted and desperately trying to prove he was human. I think, Amara said slowly, that leaving her to die makes you exactly what Young-ho claims you are. Weak, vengeful, unworthy of loyalty. She met his eyes. But saving her, saving the woman who betrayed you, proves you're still the man who built an empire on something more than just fear. His throat worked. She doesn't deserve to be saved. Maybe not, but you deserve to be the kind of person who saves her anyway. Silence stretched between them. Then Jaehyun nodded once. Do-hyun, find out where Young-ho's holding her. Boss, this is obviously a trap. I know it's a trap. Find her anyway. They tracked Mirren to an abandoned factory on the waterfront. Exactly the kind of isolated location perfect for an ambush. Every tactical analysis screamed at them to walk away, to let Young-ho keep his hostage, to preserve their resources for the final confrontation. Jaehyun refused. This is suicide, Do-hyun said for the third time as they approached the factory in darkness. We should call it off. No. Jaehyun checked his weapon with steady hands. We go in. We get her. We get out. And when Young-ho springs his trap, then we spring ours. He looked at his small team, 8 people total against whatever Young-ho had waiting inside. Everyone ready? Nods all around. Grim determination. They knew the odds. They went anyway. Amara stayed in the vehicle despite every instinct to follow. Her job was extraction. Engine running, escape route clear, ready to move the moment they emerged. If they emerged. She watched them disappear into the factory through night vision binoculars, her heart in her throat, her hands gripping the steering wheel hard enough to hurt. 4 minutes of silence. Then gunfire exploded like thunder, muzzle flashes visible through broken windows. Shouting, more shots, the sound of something heavy crashing. Amar's entire body tensed. Come on, come on, come on! The factory's main door burst open. Do-hyun emerged first, half carrying an unconscious Mirren. Hyuk-jae followed, limping badly. Then 2 more team members, both injured. No Jae-hyun. Where is he? Amar shouted as they threw Mirren into the vehicle. Still inside, Do-hyun gasped. Young-ho's men surrounded him. We got separated. Go back. He ordered us to leave, to get Mirren out, to... Amara didn't wait to hear the rest. She grabbed a weapon from the vehicle, checked the safety the way she'd seen Do-hyun do it 100 times, and ran toward the factory. Amara! Do-hyun's shout followed her. Stop! She didn't stop. She burst through the factory entrance into chaos and smoke and violence, bodies on the ground, blood everywhere. The chemical smell of spent ammunition burning her throat. And there, in the center of the space, surrounded by 6 men with weapons trained on him from every angle, Jae-hyun in his wheelchair, still armed, still fighting, absolutely refusing to surrender. Young-ho stood in front of him, smiling. It's over, boss. You fought well, but you lost. Not yet. Jae-hyun's voice stayed steady despite the guns, despite everything. Yes. Yet. Young-ho raised his own weapon, aiming directly at Jae-hyun's head. Any last words? Just one, Jae-hyun said. What? Duck. Young-ho frowned. Then his eyes went wide. Amara fired. She had no idea if she hit anything, had never fired a weapon in her life, had no training, no skill, nothing but desperation and rage. But it was enough. The shot went wide but caused Young-ho's men to scatter, to turn their attention away from Jae-hyun for just 1 critical second. Jae-hyun used that second to shoot 3 men in rapid succession, his aim perfect despite the wheelchair, despite everything. Then Do-hyun and Hyuk-jae burst back through the entrance with the rest of the team, and suddenly, the factory descended into total war. Amara dove behind a support beam, her ears ringing, her heart slamming against her ribs so hard she thought it might break through her chest. She'd just killed someone. Maybe she didn't know, couldn't think about it, couldn't process. Strong hands grabbed her shoulders, Jae-hyun pulling her down beside him behind his wheelchair. "What the hell are you doing?" he shouted over the gunfire. "Saving you! You could have died. So could you." He stared at her, and even in the chaos, even surrounded by violence and death, something passed between them that needed no words. Then Young-ho appeared above them, weapon raised, rage and disbelief carved into his face. "You should have run," he snarled. "Should have taken your money and disappeared. But you came back for her." He gestured toward where Mirin lay unconscious in the vehicle outside. "For the woman who betrayed you?" "Yes," Jae-hyun said simply. "Why?" "Because that's what leaders do." Jae-hyun's voice turned cold as ice. "They protect people, even the ones who don't deserve it. You'll never understand that." Young-ho's finger tightened on the trigger. Amara moved without thinking, throwing herself between the weapon and Jae-hyun just as the shot fired. Pain exploded through her shoulder like lightning, spinning her backward. She heard Jae-hyun scream her name, heard more gunfire, heard chaos erupting around her. Then darkness pulled her under, and the last thing she saw was Jae-hyun's face above hers, terrified and furious and completely shattered, and she thought, "At least I saved him." Then nothing. Amara woke to the smell of antiseptic and the steady beep of medical equipment. Pain radiated from her left shoulder in waves that made her breath catch, but she was alive, conscious, aware of white ceiling tiles and the feeling of clean sheets against her skin. A private hospital room. Expensive. Secure. She turned her head slowly, every movement sending fresh agony through damaged tissue, and found Jae-hyun asleep in his wheelchair beside the bed. His hand rested near hers on the mattress, close enough to touch, but not quite making contact. His face looked haggard, dark circles under his eyes, several days of stubble on his jaw. Exhaustion carved into every line. How long had she been unconscious? She tried to sit up. The pain nearly knocked her back down. Jae-hyun's eyes snapped open instantly. "Don't move." His voice came out hoarse, wrecked, like he'd been screaming or hadn't spoken in days. "What happened?" Amara managed. "You took a bullet for me." His eyes were dark, furious, haunted. "You threw yourself in front of a gun. Again." Memory crashed back. The factory, Young-ho, the weapon aimed at Jae-hyun's head. "Did I save you?" she asked. "Yes." "Then it was worth it." His jaw clenched so hard she could see the muscle jump. "You almost died." "But I didn't. The bullet went through your shoulder, missed your lung by 2 centimeters, nicked an artery. You bled out on that factory floor while I—" His voice cracked. "While I couldn't do anything except watch you dying and scream for help like a useless— Stop!" She found his hand with her good one, squeezing hard. "I'm alive. You're alive. That's what matters. You shouldn't have come back for me." "Yes, I should have." "Amara? No." Her voice turned hard despite the pain. "Listen to me very carefully. I walked into that factory knowing exactly what I was risking. I made a choice. Don't you dare dishonor that choice by wishing I hadn't made it." He stared at her, something raw and broken moving behind his eyes. Then his shoulders sagged and he pressed his forehead against their joined hands, his breath shaking. "I thought I lost you," he whispered. "You didn't. I thought—" He couldn't seem to finish the sentence. Amara squeezed his hand again, feeling his fingers grip hers like a lifeline. They stayed like that for a long moment. Her in the hospital bed with a bullet wound. Him in a wheelchair with a shattered empire, both of them alive against impossible odds. Finally, she asked the question burning in her mind. "What happened after I passed out?" Jae-hyun lifted his head slowly. His expression shifted from vulnerable to cold and hard in seconds. "Young-ho is dead," he said flatly. The words hung in the air between them. "Do-hyun killed him?" "No." His eyes met hers. "I did." She'd expected that answer, but hearing it still sent a chill through her chest. "How?" "After you went down, I shot him 3 times, center mass. Then once in the head to be sure." His voice stayed eerily calm. Then I held you while you bled, and refused to let go even when Do-hyun tried to get you to the vehicle. I wouldn't leave you, wouldn't let you die alone. Amar's throat tightened. Dr. Kwan saved your life, he continued. Emergency surgery in the back of a moving van because we couldn't risk a public hospital. You were unconscious for 4 days. The wound got infected. You had a fever that peaked at 40 degrees. We thought... He stopped, swallowed hard. We thought we were going to lose you anyway. But you didn't. No. His hand tightened on hers. You're too stubborn to die. Despite everything, she smiled. Learned from the best. A knock at the door interrupted them. Do-hyun entered, his expression carefully neutral, but his eyes showing relief when he saw Amara awake. Boss, he said, the crew leaders are here. Jae-hyun's entire demeanor changed instantly, vulnerability vanishing behind the mask of authority. All of them? Every single one. They're waiting in the conference room. What do they want? To talk. Do-hyun paused. About leadership. Understanding clicked in Amar's mind. With Young-ho dead and the $30 million still missing, the entire organization was in chaos. The crew leaders needed someone to take control before the empire collapsed completely. They needed Jae-hyun. Go, Amara said quietly. He looked at her. I'm not leaving you. Yes, you are. Because this is why we fought. She squeezed his hand. This is why I took that bullet, so you could reclaim what's yours. Her voice softened. Go be their king. For a moment, she thought he'd refuse. Then he nodded once, released her hand reluctantly, and rolled toward the door with Do-hyun. He paused at the threshold and looked back. Don't you dare die while I'm gone. Wouldn't dream of it. He left. Amar collapsed back against the pillows, exhausted from 10 minutes of consciousness. But beneath the pain and fatigue, something burned steady and certain. They'd survived. Against every odd, every enemy, every impossible situation, they'd survived. Now they just had to figure out what came next. The conference room was in a neutral hotel across town, secured by Hyuk-jae's men and swept for surveillance devices 3 times. 13 crew leaders sat around the table, the same men who'd voted Jae-hyun out less than a week ago. Now they stood when he entered. The gesture said everything. Jae-hyun rolled to the head of the table and stopped, his expression cold and controlled. Gentlemen, Park Jin-woo spoke first, his voice careful. Boss, we made a mistake. Yes, you did. Young-ho convinced us you were weak, that the marriage, the press conference, the public vulnerability meant you couldn't lead. Park's jaw tightened. We were wrong. Were you? Jae-hyun's voice stayed dangerously soft. Or were you just opportunistic, saw a chance to grab power and took it? Uncomfortable silence. Be honest, Jae-hyun continued. Would any of you be here if Young-ho was still alive? If the money was still flowing? If I hadn't proven I could still win? More silence. Guilty, heavy silence. That's what I thought. He leaned back in his wheelchair. So let me be very clear about something. I don't want your loyalty because you fear me. I don't want your obedience because I proved I can still kill. I want you to follow me because you genuinely believe I'm the best person to lead this organization. You are, Hyuk-jae said firmly. You always have been. Then why did you vote against me? Because we were scared. The admission came from Kim Sang-min, one of the younger underbosses. Scared of change, scared of weakness, scared that if you fell, we'd all fall with you. He met Jae-hyun's eyes. But you didn't fall. You adapted. You survived. You came back from complete destruction and killed the man who betrayed you. His voice hardened with respect. That's not weakness. That's evolution. Jae-hyun studied each face around the table, saw genuine remorse in some, calculated loyalty in others, fear in a few. He'd take it. Here's how this works, he said. I'm taking back control of this organization, not through fear, not through violence, through competence. His eyes narrowed. Young-ho's coup exposed every crack in our infrastructure, weak security, financial vulnerabilities, internal betrayals. We're going to fix all of it. How? Park asked. By changing the rules. Jae-hyun's voice turned hard. No more ruling through terror. No more loyalty bought with threats. From now on, this organization operates on earned respect and shared profit. You follow me because following me makes you successful. You betray me and you lose everything you've built. Kim hesitated. That's not how the underworld works. Then maybe it's time the underworld evolved. Jaehyun leaned forward. I spent 18 months proving I could lead despite paralysis. I spent the last week proving I could win despite losing everything. Now I'm going to prove that power built on mutual benefit lasts longer than power built on fear. He paused. Anyone who can't accept that should leave now. No consequences. Clean exit. Nobody moved. Good. Jaehyun nodded once. Then let's rebuild. The meeting lasted 6 hours. Restructuring territory agreements, redistributing resources, establishing new protocols for conflict resolution. By the end, they had the framework of something that looked less like a traditional crime syndicate and more like a ruthlessly efficient business organization. Illegal, yes. Dangerous, absolutely. But organized in a way that might actually survive long term. When Jaehyun finally returned to the hospital, exhaustion pressed against his skull like a vice. But beneath the fatigue, something else burned. Hope. He found Amara awake, sitting up slightly with her shoulder heavily bandaged. Dr. Kwan stood nearby checking vitals. She's healing well, the doctor said. Another week of rest, then physical therapy for the shoulder. She'll have full mobility eventually, but it'll take time. Thank you, Jaehyun said quietly. Dr. Kwan nodded and left, giving them privacy. Amara looked at him. How did it go? They want me back. Of course they do. You're the only one who knows how to actually lead. She smiled slightly. What did you tell them? That I'd take back control on my terms. No more ruling through fear, new structure, new rules. He rolled closer to the bed. They agreed. Just like that? They're terrified of what happens if I say no. The organization would fracture within days. His expression turned wry. Fear still has its uses. I'm just choosing to build something better on top of it. Evolution, she said softly. Someone recently taught me that strength isn't about never breaking. It's about what you build after you've been shattered. His eyes met hers. I'm trying to remember that. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Amara asked the question they'd both been avoiding. What happens to us? Jaehyun's expression shifted to something uncertain, vulnerable. What do you want to happen? I asked first. Fair enough. He took a slow breath. The contract is void. Everything that happened, the coup, the violence, you nearly dying, that wasn't part of our agreement. You fulfilled your obligation 10 times over. He pulled out his phone, showed her a bank transfer. $20 million. Transferred this morning to your account. More than we agreed on. Enough for you to disappear. Start over. Build whatever life you want. Her chest tightened. You're giving me an exit. I'm giving you a choice. His voice went soft. 1 year, we agreed. No emotional attachment. But that fell apart the night you found me in the gym. We both know it. And I won't trap you in a life you didn't choose just because circumstances changed. So if I take the money and leave? Then you leave. Pain flickered across his face. No hard feelings, no consequences. Just freedom. Amara looked at the transfer amount on his phone. $20 million. More money than she'd ever imagined having. Enough to go anywhere, do anything. Never worry about survival again. Everything she'd wanted when she first agreed to this insane arrangement. And if I stay? She asked quietly. His breath caught. What? If I don't want the money, if I don't want to leave, if I want... She met his eyes directly. If I want this to be real, what happens then? Amara, Mom, answer the question, Jaehyun. He stared at her for a long moment, emotions warring across his face. Then he spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. Then I would spend every single day for the rest of my life trying to deserve you. Her throat tightened. You already do. No, I don't. He moved closer, his hand finding hers. You took a bullet for me. You walked into hell without hesitation. You saw me at my absolute worst, broken, screaming, failing. And you didn't run. You stayed. His voice cracked slightly. Nobody has ever stayed. I'm still here. Why? The word came out raw. Why would you choose this? Choose me? You could have anything. Go anywhere. Build a normal life away from violence and crime and constant danger. Instead, you're sitting in a hospital bed with a gunshot wound because you threw yourself in front of a weapon to save a man who... He stopped, swallowed hard. Who loves you too much to ever ask you to sacrifice more than you already have. The confession hung in the air between them. Amara's eyes burned. Say that again. What? The last part. Say it again. His hand tightened on hers. I love you. I think I started falling the moment you stepped between me and Young-ho in that ballroom. I know I was completely gone the night you helped me off that gym floor. His voice turned fierce. I love you enough to let you go if that's what you need. But I'm selfish enough to pray that you stay. Tears slipped down her cheeks. You're an idiot. He blinked. What? You think I walked into that factory, took a bullet, and spent 4 days unconscious just to walk away afterward? She laughed through the tears. Jae-hyun, I could have left 100 times, could have taken the money and run the moment things got dangerous. But I didn't. You know why? Tell me. Vamos. Because somewhere between that fake wedding and this hospital room, you stopped being a transaction and became the most real thing in my life. Her voice broke. Because I love you too. Your strength, your vulnerability, your stupid determination to keep fighting even when every odd is against you. She squeezed his hand hard. I love all of it, even the parts that terrify me. Amara, So, no. She cut him off firmly. I'm not taking the money and leaving. I'm staying right here with you, for real this time. No contracts, no time limits, just us. For 3 seconds, he didn't move, didn't breathe, just stared at her like she'd offered him something impossible. Then he leaned forward and kissed her. It was careful because of her injury, gentle despite the desperation behind it. His hand cupped her face like she was something precious and breakable. She kissed him back with everything she had, all the fear, all the relief, all the love she'd been holding back for weeks. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Jae-hyun rested his forehead against hers. This life is dangerous, he whispered. I know. You'll always be a target, always be at risk, always be looking over your shoulder. I know that too. I can't promise you safety or normalcy or a peaceful existence. Good, she met his eyes, because I don't want any of those things. I want you. Broken parts, wheelchair, criminal empire and all. His laugh came out shaky. You're insane. Learn from the best. He kissed her again, slower this time, savoring it. Then he pulled back just enough to speak. Marry me, he said. She smiled. We're already married. For real this time. No contracts, no money, no business arrangements. His eyes searched hers. Just you and me choosing each other. Completely. When? Whenever you're healed. Whenever you're ready. His voice softened. Whenever you want to stand beside me and promise forever to a man who will spend his entire life trying to deserve it. Amara's chest ached with the intensity of what she felt. Yes. Yes? Yes. I'll marry you again for real, forever. She kissed him once more. But you're already enough, Jae-hyun. You don't have to keep trying to earn something you already have. His arms wrapped around her carefully, holding her as close as her injury allowed. They stayed like that for a long time, two people who'd found each other in the worst possible circumstances and somehow built something real from the wreckage. 3 months later, Amara stood in a small garden overlooking the ocean, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of gold and crimson. Her shoulders still ached sometimes when the weather changed, but Dr. Kwan said the scar tissue would fade eventually. She barely noticed anymore. Behind her, workers put finishing touches on the setup. White chairs, flower arrangements, soft lighting strung between cherry trees. Small, intimate, nothing like the massive spectacle of that first disastrous wedding. This ceremony would have maybe 30 people. Just family and the crew leaders who'd proven their loyalty. No press, no cameras, no performance. Just truth. Footsteps approached. She turned to find Miran walking hesitantly toward her, looking uncomfortable in a modest blue dress. They'd had exactly 2 conversations since the factory. The first in the hospital when Miran woke up from her own injuries. The second a week later when Jae-hyun officially released her from any obligation to the Seo family alliance. "Thank you for inviting me," Miran said quietly. "I wasn't sure you would. Jaehyun wanted you here." Amara kept her voice neutral. "Said you deserved to see that he moved on." "He moved on with someone infinitely better than me." Miran's eyes held genuine regret. "For what it's worth, I'm sorry. For the wedding, for the humiliation, for taking Young-ho's money and destroying everything." "Why did you do it?" "Fear." The admission came out bitter. "I was scared of being tied to a man who couldn't walk, scared of what people would think, scared of my family's judgment." She looked at Amara. "I was a coward. You weren't. That's the difference between us." Amara studied the woman who'd started this entire chain of events, who'd called Jae-hyun a cripple and walked away, setting off the sequence that led to everything. The marriage, the coup, the war, the love. "You were human," Amara said finally. "Flawed and scared and human. I can't hate you for that." "Why not?" "Because if you hadn't walked out, I never would have walked in." She smiled slightly. "So in a strange way, I owe you everything." Miran's eyes widened, then she laughed, sharp and surprised. "That's a very generous way to look at it." "I'm feeling generous today." Amar glanced toward the house where Jae-hyun was getting ready. "He forgave you, you know. Actually forgave you. Not because you deserved it, but because holding on to that anger was destroying him. He's a better person than most people give him credit for." "Yes, he is." Miran nodded once, then walked away to find her seat. Amara watched her go, feeling something release in her chest. Forgiveness wasn't about excusing the harm. It was about refusing to let that harm define the future. Mrs. Choi appeared at her elbow. "It's time, dear." Amara took a deep breath and followed her inside to the small room where her dress waited. Not white this time, a soft ivory that glowed in the evening light. Simple, elegant, real. Her mother helped her into it, tears streaming down her face. "I still can't believe my daughter married a Korean mafia boss." "Ex-mafia boss," Amara corrected. "He's restructuring, making it legitimate. Mostly." "Mostly?" Her mother's eyebrows rose. "Baby steps, Mom." Her mother laughed and pulled her into a careful hug, mindful of the healing shoulder. "I'm proud of you, even if you gave me a dozen heart attacks these past few months." "Sorry about that." "No, you're not." "No, I'm really not." The ceremony began at sunset. Amara walked down a short aisle created by white chairs, her hand resting lightly on her mother's arm. No dramatic entrance, no grand procession, just a woman walking toward the man she chose. Jae-hyun waited at the altar positioned near the cliff's edge. He stood using metal braces and a cane, the result of months of brutal physical therapy and sheer determination. Still couldn't walk long distances. Still needed the wheelchair for most daily activities. But for this moment, for this ceremony, he refused to sit. Their eyes met. She saw everything in that look, the journey, the pain, the survival, the love that had grown from transaction to truth. She reached the altar and took his free hand. His grip was warm and certain and slightly trembling. "Hi," she whispered. "Hi." His smile was soft, genuine, completely unguarded. "You look incredible. You're standing. For you, I'd do anything." The officiant began speaking in Korean and English, weaving both languages together in a way that honored both their cultures. When it came time for vows, Jae-hyun spoke first. "Amara." His voice carried clear and strong. "The first time I asked you to marry me, it was desperation. I needed a wife, a prop, someone to stand beside me and make me look less broken." He paused. "But you were never just a prop. From the moment you stepped between me and danger without flinching, you've been my partner, my equal, my salvation." His hand tightened on hers. "You taught me that strength isn't about never falling down. It's about having someone worth standing back up for. So I promise you this, I will spend the rest of my life standing beside you in whatever form that takes. I will protect you, challenge you, love you completely. I will be your partner in everything, for as long as you'll have me." Tears streamed down Amara's face. Then she spoke. "Jae-hyun, you offered me money, safety, freedom, everything I thought I wanted." She smiled through the tears. "But you gave me something more valuable. You gave me purpose. partnership, a place to belong in a world that never quite fit me. Her voice strengthened. You showed me that love isn't about perfection or performance. It's about choosing someone completely, flaws, scars, broken pieces and all. So I promise you this, I will choose you every single day, in wheelchairs or on foot, in peace or in war. I will stand beside you, fight for you, love you without limits or conditions. You are mine, and I am yours, forever. The officiant pronounced them married. Jae-hyun leaned on his cane and pulled Amara close with his free arm, kissing her while the small crowd erupted in applause. The sun slipped below the horizon, painting them in gold and shadow. When they finally pulled apart, he whispered against her lips, "Thank you." For what? For staying. For choosing me. For making me believe in something more than just survival. She cupped his face gently. "Thank you for teaching me I was always strong enough. I just needed someone worth fighting for." They kissed again, and this time the applause was drowned out by the sound of waves crashing against the cliff below. Later, at the small reception, Amara watched Jae-hyun move through the crowd with careful steps, his cane supporting him, his smile genuine. The crew leaders who'd once voted him out now stood and bowed when he approached, showing genuine respect earned through survival rather than fear. Hyuk-jae raised a glass. To the boss who refused to quit, and to his wife who was crazy enough to follow him into hell. To the boss and his queen, Park Jin-woo added. Everyone drank. Do-hyun approached Amara while Jae-hyun was occupied with other guests. "Mrs. Kang, I wanted to apologize." She looked at him. "For what?" "For doubting you. For thinking you were just—" He struggled for words. "Just a transaction. I was wrong. You're the strongest person I've ever met." "I'm really not." "Yes, you are." His expression turned serious. "You threw yourself in front of a bullet for him. Most people wouldn't do that for family. You did it for a man you'd known barely a month. He was worth saving." "So were you." Do-hyun's voice softened. "And for what it's worth, I'm glad you both survived. The boss is better with you beside him, calmer, more human." He was always human. People just didn't bother looking past the wheelchair. "No, we didn't." He nodded once. "That's changing now, because you forced us to see." He walked away before she could respond, leaving her standing there processing the words. Jae-hyun appeared at her side, moving slowly but steady. What did Do-hyun want? To apologize, and to thank me for making you more human. "I've always been human. I know that. They're finally figuring it out." She took his hand. "How's the leg?" "Hurting, but I'll make it another hour before I need to sit." He looked out over the gathered crowd. Former enemies, loyal friends, family who'd traveled across oceans to be here. "This is different from last time." "Very different." "Better?" "Infinitely better." She leaned against his shoulder carefully. "No performance? No cameras? Just people who actually care whether we make it." "We'll make it." His voice carried absolute certainty. "We've survived everything else. What's a marriage compared to assassination attempts and hostile takeovers?" She laughed. "When you put it that way." They stood together watching the night deepen around them, two people who'd found each other in chaos and built something real from the wreckage. The future stretched ahead, uncertain and dangerous, and absolutely worth fighting for. 1 year later, Amara stood in the kitchen of their seaside home watching Jae-hyun attempt to cook breakfast. He moved between the counter and stove using his cane, his wheelchair parked nearby for when fatigue set in. The physical therapy had given him maybe 2 hours of walking time per day. He used every minute stubbornly. "You're burning the eggs," she said from her position at the table, her laptop open with designs for her new business. A luxury event company that had exploded in popularity after the wedding scandal. Turned out people loved hiring the woman who'd married a Mafia boss and survived. "I'm not burning anything," Jae-hyun protested. Then smoke billowed from the pan. "Okay, maybe I'm burning them a little." She got up and took over, hip-checking him gently aside. "Go sit down before you hurt yourself." "I can cook." "You can do many things. Cooking is not one of them." He grumbled but moved to the table, easing into his wheelchair with visible relief. His legs ached after extended standing. They probably always would, but he'd stopped seeing it as weakness. Evolution, he'd learned, meant accepting limitations while building strength around them. "I have a meeting with the Soul Council tonight," he said, reviewing his own schedule on a tablet. "They want to discuss the expansion proposal." The legitimate expansion proposal? Yes, completely legal. Construction contracts, logistics management, security consulting. No smuggling, no extortion, just business. "You sound disappointed." "I'm really not," he smiled. "Turns out running a legitimate operation is significantly less stressful than running a criminal empire. Who would have thought?" She set the fixed breakfast in front of him. Eggs that weren't burned, toast, fruit. "I have 3 events this month: corporate gala, wedding, and a product launch for a tech company." "The wedding is going to be ironic." "Very, but they specifically requested me because of our story." She sat down across from him. "Apparently we're relationship goals now." He nearly choked on his coffee. "We got shot at multiple times." "I know, but we survived together. People find that romantic." "People are insane," says the man who married his event coordinator after a wedding disaster. "Fair point." They ate breakfast together while morning sun spilled through the windows, painting everything gold. Jazz played softly from speakers in the living room. Outside, waves crashed against the cliff in steady rhythm. Peaceful, real, home. After breakfast, they walked, slowly, carefully, along the cliff path that ran behind the property. Jaehyun used his cane. Amara stayed close enough to help if needed, but far enough to give him independence. "I never thought I'd have this," he said quietly, watching the ocean. "Breakfast? Peace." He stopped walking and turned to face her. "I spent so many years ruling through fear and violence, thinking power was the only thing that mattered. Then I lost everything and discovered—" He reached for her hand. "This matters more. You matter more. The life we built together matters more than any empire ever could." Amara stepped closer, wrapping her arms carefully around him while he balanced on the cane. "You know what I never thought I'd have?" "What?" "A place to belong. A home that feels real. Someone who sees me completely and loves me anyway." She looked up at him. "Someone worth taking a bullet for." "Still not over that?" "Never getting over that?" He kissed her forehead, then her cheek, then her mouth, slow and gentle and full of promises that had nothing to do with contracts or transactions. "I love you," he whispered. "I love you too." They stood there on the cliff path in morning sunshine, 2 people who'd survived hell together and built something beautiful from the ashes. The scars remained, physical and emotional, but they wore them like badges of honor. Proof they'd fought. Proof they'd survived. Proof that sometimes the most real love starts in the messiest, most impossible circumstances and becomes something worth every sacrifice. Behind them, the mansion stood solid and secure. Ahead, the ocean stretched endless and wild. And between those 2 points, they existed, perfectly imperfect, scarred and healing, absolutely certain that whatever came next, they'd face it together. Because that's what partners do. They choose each other, again and again and again. Until choosing becomes breathing. Until together becomes forever. Years later, long after the scandal faded and the underworld transformed into legitimate business, Amara would look back on that first night in the ballroom and marvel at the chain of events that followed. One humiliation, one impulsive decision, one contract that became something infinitely more valuable. She'd walked into Kang Jae-hyun's life by accident and stayed by choice, had seen him at his absolute lowest and loved him anyway, had taken a bullet for him and would do it again without hesitation. And he'd done the same for her, had given her purpose, partnership, and a love that didn't require perfection, had taught her that strength wasn't about never falling, it was about standing back up, together, always together. And as they danced slowly in their kitchen years later, his cane resting nearby, her arms around his neck, jazz playing through the speakers while dinner burned forgotten on the stove, Amara finally understood what her event coordinator brain had missed that chaotic night. The best things in life aren't planned, they're survived. And the love worth having is the kind that sees you completely shattered and says, "I'll help you rebuild, together." That's what they had. That's what they'd always have. And it was more than enough. It was everything.